Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all here in this session at TNV Academy. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our eminent speaker, Mr. Srinivasan Sitaraman from Bangalore, Karnataka, India, who is going to talk to us today about steps to implementation of ISO 9001-2015. This is the topic in which we should all be deeply interested as steps to implementation of ISO 9001-2015 is the key impulsion for effective implementation of the standard in any organization. So it is very important to know how to implement ISO 9001 standard in an organization. In this webinar today, Mr. Sitaraman will discuss this topic in detail along with some real life examples he has experienced in the industry. Our distinguished speaker, Mr. Srinivasan Sitaraman, has done his post-graduation from Annamalai University, India. He is also a lead auditor in ISO 9001, 14001, and 45001. He has an industrial experience of around 30 years in various industries ranging from primary and secondary batteries, non-ferrous alloy, lamp components, and manufacturing in India, South Africa, and Sultanate of Oman. He has been imparting training to a number of organizations, entrepreneurs, and executives on various topics related to ISO and safety and management, etc. It was just a brief introduction of our guest speaker today. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Srinivasan Sitaraman. I may request Mr. Sitaraman now to please start the session on steps to implement ISO 9001-2015.
Thank you, Mr. Apur and Satyan, and thank you to TNV Academy for inviting me to host this webinar. It's really exciting to host this webinar on steps to implementation of ISO 9001-2015. So you had given a nice introduction about me. Thank you very much for that. So I'll be doing justice to this. Today's session, it will be lasting little over an hour or so, where we'll be talking about the steps to implementation of ISO 9001-2015. So what all things we'll be covering is basically today we'll be talking about introduction to ISO, and then we will also look at how we implement this ISO 9000-2015 in an organization. And also at the end of the session, I'll be taking questions from participants. If they have got any questions, please address it to our moderators. And then at the end of it, we will be discussing the answers for those questions. Okay. So let us jump into the session straight away. Introduction to ISO. Because before implementing, you need to know what is ISO, how this functions, this organization, and what is the aim of the organization. All that we'll be looking at it in this first session. Okay. See, ISO is nothing but International Organization for Standardization. Okay. So normally when we say acronym, it will follow the same order of the letters and abbreviation. ISO, it should be International Standards Organization, but actually it is called International Organization for Standardization. Why? When they started in 1947, it was headquartered in Geneva. That time it was only International Standards Organization, and the official medium was only English as language. Then they started introducing French and Russian and other languages. So then the same order could not be maintained. So what they did, they retained the ISO as a logo for the organization, and they changed the name to International Organization for Standardization. Okay. The main thing why they retain this ISO as a logo, it's not an acronym, it's a logo for the organization, because ISO in Greek means same or similar. ISO's main aim is to have same systems, similar systems across the organization, or I can say equal. Like in physics and chemistry, you see isotherms, isobars, isotopes. These are all nothing but having same kind of atomic number, same temperature, same pressure. You call it isobar. If it is same atomic number, you call it isotope. So this ISO means same or similar. That's a Greek language. So they retained ISO to signify that all organizations who have implemented ISO certification will have the similar structure and procedures and processes in place, so customers can seamlessly interact with any organization irrespective of which country it belongs to. So that is why ISO wants to be a global organization setting up standards across the globe. Okay, so that was the main purpose. It just started after World War II, where the need for standardization came into being in products, and then they slowly translate into management systems. Okay, so there are 164 countries who are members of ISO. So there's a lot of there's total 195 countries also in the world, but out of that, almost 164 countries are members of ISO. They're active members. That means they are sending their representative to deliberate in the committees, the discussions, and then they come up with the standards which is implemented across the globe. So in India, basically every country, there's a national network of standard bodies, and they send their members to the ISO committee. Now, that's how in India, Bureau of Indian Standards is the official representative of India in ISO. So like that, every country has got a national standard body, and they will be sending their representatives, and they will be sitting in various committees and then deliberate on them. So that is a way the ISO organization is run. Main thing we need to note here is ISO does not certify. It only publishes standards. It is not a profit organization. It's a non-profit organization. So how do they run the organization? They basically generate revenue by selling standards and then getting membership fees from the countries who are active members in the organization, and then they're running the organization. So we need to understand ISO does not certify. If somebody says our company is ISO certified or ISO certification, that is actually wrong or incorrect, I would say. It is basically our company is certified to a particular standard, like ISO 9000 in this case. It will be our company is certified to ISO 9001 2015 version of the standard. That's a correct way of saying, rather than saying our company is ISO 9001 certified, because ISO does not certify. They only publish standards. Okay. So it consists of more than 180 committees to formulate standards. So these committees are known as technical committees. Like we have in India, we have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Every 5 years, Lok Sabha is completely dissolved, and then again election is held, and then all the members come back. Whereas in Rajya Sabha, we have got a 6-year term, so people come and people go. Always there will be some amount of people which will be remaining in the Rajya Sabha. It is never completely empty. So what happens there? Always knowledge exchange happens when there is old people there and then the new people coming in. So there is exchange of knowledge, and experience comes into picture. So that is helping the Rajya Sabha to take wise decisions. That's why any bill which is passed in Lok Sabha also has to be passed in the Rajya Sabha to become a law. Same way, these technical committees have got a membership which will be rotating every 4-year, 5-year term. New people will be coming, and old people also will be there. So there is a lot of exchange of knowledge and experience happens, and we get the juice of this technical committee, which is the standard, which gets voted by all the participating members, and then it gets published as a standard. And that's what we are adopting, and then we are getting the certification for it. Okay, so that is the thing we must be remembering, that ISO does not certify, and the standards are developed by technical committees. So Indian people are also members of this committee, and then they develop the standards. So for example, to say TC 176, that means Technical Committee 176 is the committee responsible for developing ISO 9001 standards. So they only talk about quality management system. Same way, there is another committee dedicated, TC 283. That is only to develop ISO 45001 standard, which talks about occupational health and safety. And then again, TC 301, it is only to develop energy management system. That is as per ISO 50001. So this committee number and the standard number will not change. Only the year of revision, whenever it is revised, this year of revision will be coming after the number, and that's how we call it ISO 9001 2015 version. So it's already 7 years old, so it is going to be revised, because normally the revision happens every 5 years, and this time, because of the pandemic, the meetings could not happen, the deliberations could not happen, so there is a delay. So hopefully we should get the revised standard of ISO 9001 by 2024 or so. So the standards are revised every 5 years. Why is it revised? If you think about it, it is very important that we have to update ourselves with the changing technologies, changing scenarios. The things are happening very fast paced nowadays. So we need to update ourselves with the rapid changes in the industrialization, in the methodologies which people operate. So like that, we need to update ourselves. If you continue to do what you have been doing 10 years ago, you will be out of business. You will be out of relevance. And that's why standards are also keeping pace with the changing technology, changing scenarios in the world. So So that's why the revision happens every 5 years, and then organizations are given a time period of 3 years or so to adopt to the new standard. So that's how the standards are revised and organizations are also adopting it. Okay. So the main purpose, as I said earlier, is promoting a development of standardization across the globe. So customer from India can purchase products and services from anywhere as long as they are ISO 9001 certified. The customer gets a confidence that whatever products and services he is getting is going to be reliable, consistent, and comparable. So he need not worry about geographical barriers, and that becomes a global standardization. So that is what is the aim of ISO. Also, it facilitates international exchange of goods and services. That's very important. Nowadays, people are traveling between countries like they used to travel between cities maybe 10 years ago. So that's why there is no barrier in terms of international trade. Everything is opened up. Globalization is here to stay. So we need to have our standards in line with the international standards. Then only we can do business in the international level. And that's what ISO is helping us to achieve that through this standard ISO 9001. Okay. So once an organization is certified, then you will be recertified. Why? Because 3 years, whether you are continuously following these systems, every year there will be a surveillance audit by the certification body. And then at the end of the 3rd year, it will be a complete recertification where all the management systems, all the departments of the organizations are audited and then qualified to have recertification. So that is called recertification audit once in 3 years. Otherwise, every year it is going to be a surveillance audit. That means they just want to come and check a couple of departments on a sample basis, and if they are running fine as per the systems and procedures, they consider the whole organization is running as per the ISO 9001 requirements, and then they recommend continuation of the certification for 1 more year. So like the 2 years the surveillance audit happens, and the 3rd year the entire organization has to go for recertification audit, and then they get recertified. It's just like your quarterly, half-yearly examination where some portion of the syllabus is checked through examination, but when it comes to the annual examination, the complete portion is tested. So that's what is recertification audit all about. So hope you got an idea about this ISO as a general organization and what is their aim and how do they operate and what are these technical committees. So we need to just focus on TC 176. That is our technical committee for developing ISO 9001 standards. So now let's go to the next question. We need to ask ourselves why we need to have ISO standards. So we need to deliberate on that so that we'll get a better clarity when we go for implementing this standard in our organization. First and foremost, ISO sets an internationally recognized benchmark to assure that the certification organization meets the set standard. See, in 1987, first standard of ISO 9001 was released. That is ISO 9001 to 1987. So it's almost 35 years or so we have got this ISO logo. It has got a pedigree associated with that. Like we have got this Tata. When you see the Tata logo, you have kind of confidence. Whatever products and services they are launching, it will be very good and it will be customer friendly and it will be really value for money. That kind of image, it is created over a period of years. So that comes with the pedigree and the people associated with that and the kinds of products and services they're launching in the market and the kind of the good corporate citizenship they are displaying, that all going to promote the image of the brand. So the same way ISO 9000 logo, if you look at it, it is a very well recognized logo in the world. So everybody will know how ISO 9000 logo look like. So when it is coming part of your marketing campaign or part of your letterhead, so customer will get a very good image about the company, that this company believes in standards and procedures. There are systems in place. Even people may come and go, but the systems will remain there, and then there will be consistency in things there. That is why it is an internationally recognized benchmark. Means the logo is very visible and very understandable by everybody for the standards they represent. Okay. Second, it assures that the certifying organization operates in a consistent, comparable, and reliable manner. There are 3 things we need to understand: consistency, comparability, and reliability. When I say consistency, because ISO believes in consistency means documentation, procedures, they call standard operating procedures. That means batch after batch, shift after shift, day after day, when people come and go, but they are all following the same procedure because it's documented and maintained, and people are expected to follow the procedure. So the outcome will be very similar. So that is why consistency comes into picture. The products and services offered by the company will be consistent, very important, because they are following a documentation and then they are strictly adhering to the systems and procedures. Then comparability. When you talk about ISO, there is also continual improvement. So when we are putting our products and services in the market, we need to have customers and continued customer loyalty. Otherwise, it is going to be difficult for organization to sustain in the long run. So for that, we need to benchmark ourselves with what is available in the competition and how to see our products are matching up with the performance of the competition. Very, very important. So that when you do benchmarking, naturally the product performance and service performance will be comparable to the best in the industry, because you want to be the best in the industry. So like example I will give you, when you go to a shopping mall, you want to buy a washing powder, it will always come down to only two brands, Ariel or Surf Excel, because these are two well-known brands from two different companies. Everybody will know there are so much of marketing campaigns and all going around that, but we know that in terms of performance they are going to be comparable. It won't be like 20% and 80%. We know that it will be 70, 80 or 80, 90%. They will be very, very similar. Only it will come down to the packaging, the service levels, or maybe the price offerings. There the customer will choose which one to go. Otherwise nobody will really take it on the performance of the product level, because they are comparable products in the market. Same way, when you see different market segments for mobile phones, a particular segment, the price segment, all the mobiles are comparable performance, and there will be a different price segment. For example, Apple has got a different price segment. There may be nobody comparing to that. But if you have got a normal middle class segment, there will be a lot of mobiles where the performance is very comparable. You will look at small features here and there, and the price offering, and maybe a festival discount. Then you will go for it. Otherwise, we know they are all comparable in nature. Very important for organizations to understand that. Then the third and most important is reliable manner. That means you prove your consistency over a period of time, then your product or service become reliable. That means my father was using it, I am using it, I have seen my father happy with the service and product, and I am also using it because I get a very confidence about the product, because it has been in our family for so many years, generations. Then my son also will be using it. That shows the reliability of the products and services offered by the company, where it transcends beyond the generations. So that is what every organization should aim for. We are not here to fly by night operation. We have to be here forever. So our vision should be long term, and we should be putting our systems and procedures in place, that even if we are gone, the systems and procedures will take care of the organization to greater heights. So that is why consistency, comparability, and reliability will come when you implement the ISO standards. Third and most important, it provides an independent third-party review process for the program that leads to a internationally recognized certification. Very important. See, it says third party. That means I am not saying as an organization that I have implemented ISO 9001 requirements and I am having ISO 9001 2015 certification. It is given by a third party. Who is the third party? The third party is called a certification body or a registrar, somebody can call it. But these are the people, they come here only with the aim of looking at the systems and procedures in the organization and see whether they are meeting the requirements of the ISO 9001 2015 standard. They don't have any other ulterior motive. They are impartial. They conduct impartial audits, ethical audits, honest audits, and professional audits to ensure that the organization fulfills the requirement of ISO 9000 2015. These certification bodies are basically controlled or monitored by accreditation bodies. In the world, there are around 80 accreditation bodies, and there are thousands of certification bodies associated with these accreditation bodies. So they are having a monitoring mechanism to see that all these certification bodies are doing a honest audit, and there is a observer audit also happens on the certification bodies. So this is how the credibility of the certification is given to the organizations. So that's why it's important to understand third party review process brings in the credibility for the international recognized accreditation. I hope you understand why we need ISO standards, because of these three important things. Now we look at, in a nutshell, anybody wants to know what is ISO. For example, audits are happening. People come from a certification body and then they inquire or they interview different people in the organization. So basically, people need to know these three important things. If they are able to understand, these are the underlying principles of implementation of ISO. So we'll look at it in a nutshell. What are these three things? One is document what is being done. Very important. That means the organization, whatever is being done, somebody has to sit and document the entire thing and then keep it as a documented information. Very important, because documents are going to be available for ages. Like for our forefathers have taken a lot of pains to take all the scriptures and religious texts written in palm leaves and all, and then they convert into some kind of printed form, which we are able to get the benefits of it. Now it is all digitized, and even more centuries and centuries after we gone, this documents and information is going to be there for future generations. Very important. And here what we are looking at is a documented system and not a system of documents. The difference between the two is very clear. A documented system is basically capturing what is actually going on in the organization. That means a person comes, or even a person within the organization captures the process as it is running in the organization. So when you make it into a document, when you implement it, there will be a lot of ownership in the organization, because people know this is what they have been doing and it is just being given in the form of a document. So people will be having no hesitation or no inhibitions in following the document, because it is their own procedures which has been documented. So there will be ownership in the implementation. Okay. And also second thing is preserves organization knowledge for posterity. When I say posterity, means future generations. So people are coming and going, but there are documents available, systems in place. So people, when they come, new persons coming to the organization, they don't have to reinvent the wheels. Already everything is available and documented knowledge is there. So it's very important. This is what is called organization knowledge in ISO 9001. Okay. Second most important thing, do what is documented. It is not that I have made a nice document, we got certified and everything is put in the cupboard and forgotten. It is not like that. We have to follow what is written there. That is very important. So that batch after batch, shift after shift, day after day, people are following the standard operating procedures. So there is going to be consistency in products and services in the organization to get consistency. Second, everybody does the same way. So there is going to be product variability is out of the window, because people are following. So there will be within specifications and the products and services. So everybody has got a standard set of work instructions, procedures to follow. So everybody does the same way. And third and most important thing is show, demonstrate continual improvement. That means whatever you are doing, you continue to do the same thing, then you will be out of business, because there is a cutthroat competition in the world. Like 10 years before, how many two-wheelers were in the market? Maybe once in a year you may get one two-wheeler getting launched. The four-wheelers also same, or any product for that matter. Nowadays, every month you see 2-3 models getting launched from one company. Imagine there are 10 companies and there are new startups coming in, especially in the EV industry. You see how many new companies have been launching left, right, and center two-wheelers. Some people are so in a hurry to launch that they don't do proper research and development. They get into trouble with burning batteries and things like that. But leave alone that. Otherwise, the intention to launch new models, because they want to be competing with the competition. Otherwise, they will be out of relevance. For that, you have to look at continuously looking at how to improve, means how to make it better than yesterday. If you ask a very successful director of a movie, ask him how he has done the movie, he will be a good director, will always say, I could have done it better. So that is what is the mental attitude of a person who wants improvement. If somebody says this is the best, nobody else can do, and that day his downfall or her downfall starts. So that's why organizations should always think of, there is always a better way of doing things. Okay. So improvement is the way of life. That is for business growth and prosperity, not only for ISO, for your own survival. If you do not improve, you're going to perish. We have seen a lot of companies in the past history where they were very resistant to changing technology. They bitten the dust and then they are out of the way. So we need to learn lessons from them. We should always be looking improvement for business growth and prosperity. Very important to be remain in the business and relevant in the business in the current scenario. Okay, that is very important. And then it will also be a driver for innovation. When you see, I'm just giving again example of Apple phone. When they launch Apple, iPhone 12, they already have ideas in the pipeline for iPhone 17, maybe 5 different product lines, and they will be just continuously, there is a research and development team looking at new innovative ideas, coming up with the new technologies. That's so the driver for innovation will be there when you are having a bent of mind towards continual improvement. So we should always look at how can I do it better. We should have that open mind that there is always a better way of doing things. The moment we think this is the best, that's the time our downfall or complacency will set in, and it will be detrimental for the organization and our own personal growth also. Very important. So in a nutshell, document what is being done, do what is documented, and show, demonstrate continual improvement. These 3 things we should remember, and everybody should know. So if the auditor asks, if you tell these 3 things, they know that ISO is not just written down on the poster and kept in the document. It is basically in the organization's stream. Everybody is living the ISO. It is not just documented and kept in the cupboards. That's what we need to make the organization. Okay, now let us look at some of the standards before we go into 9001. Why we need to do 9001, we will come to the steps to implementation. But I just want to take you through some of the important standards which you will come across in your career, just for your understanding. One is ISO 9000, 2015. Always remember the 2015 or whatever number comes after the standard number is the year of issue. So 9000 is nothing but fundamentals and vocabulary. This is like a dictionary for ISO 9001. If you want to refer to any particular terminology, what is ISO's intention of conveying the meaning, you will have to refer to ISO 9000 for that. So this is nothing but a dictionary for ISO 9001. Now coming to ISO 9001. 2015 is the year of issue. This is a quality management system standard requirements. You see, I have underlined the word requirement. Why? Because this is the standard where there are certain requirements for the organization to fulfill. Then only they can get certified. For example, 9000, the previous one standard, which does not have any requirements. It is just a dictionary. So you cannot say I am ISO 9000 certified, because there is nothing to fulfill. So it will refer only as a guideline or a reference material. So wherever the title says requirements, those are the standards only you can get certified. So ISO 9001 is a quality management standard, system standard requirements. So when I say quality management standard, we are not talking about the product quality. Please understand, ISO 9001 does not certify the quality of product. It is actually looking at the overall quality of management in the organization, how a HR, human resource, is managed, how materials department is managed, how the production processes are managed, and then how the quality process is managed, and finally how the marketing and sales interaction with the customer and the whole top management, how is it managing the organization. So we are looking at a holistic development, holistic management system. When you implement this, so naturally the byproduct will be a product quality, but we are not focusing on the product quality per se. So please remember, 9001 is not a product quality standard. It is an organizational quality standard. Okay, so that is very important to note. Second, ISO 9004 2018. So this was released in 2018, 4 years back. It says guidelines for performance improvement. Again, you see, this title does not have requirement. It is basically ISO 9001. After achieving, you want to excel your performance, you can refer to this 9004, which talks about more improvement initiatives which organization can do for business excellence. But it doesn't mean you will be getting a 9004 certificate, because it is not a requirement. Like in a class, there's a 35% pass mark in the exam. Whether you score 35 or 80, you are passed. So ISO 9001 is bare minimum requirements. So you are basically qualified to have the certification. But beyond the certification, you want to go on your personal, interest and personal excellence, you can follow these guidelines. So it will give you much more information. Then comes 19,011 2018. This is basically giving you organizational auditing management systems. Like, auditors, how do they audit the management systems? It gives guidance for that. So again, it's not a certifying standard. Then ISO 14001 2015, this is environmental management system. That means how organization is running and how it is interaction with the environment, how are they reducing the pollution, reusing materials and recycling materials. So it will be focusing on that, 14001. Same way 17025, this has got a requirement for testing and calibration laboratories, like various pathology laboratories, chemical laboratories, or calibration laboratories. They can go for this certification. So they have to prove that they are having the competency to test samples and then give reliable results. Very important. 22001, this is for food safety management standard requirements. Nowadays, husband wife both are working and nobody is able to have time for cooking in the kitchen, so they buy processed food, and they need to have confidence in that the food is manufactured from a ISO 22001 certified factory or something. So they have confidence in the food being consumed by them as well as by the family. So that is what is the food safety management system. Then comes 27001. This is information safety management system, information security management system standard requirements. Again, this is also a requirement where organization need to show that their documentation, whatever information they are having, it is protected from pirate attacks, and it is available for the employees in a safe and secure manner to access, and the information is protected from competition and other hacking people. So that is 27001. And then ISO 45001, new standard in the ISO family, that is for occupational health and safety management system. How the accidents and incidents to be prevented in the organization, how safety can be improved, how risk can be minimized in the organization, so employees can work safely in the safe work environment. Then finally, ISO 50001 is the energy management system requirement. This is also a certifiable standard where we have to demonstrate how we are doing energy efficiency in the organization. So we consume less energy and make more output. So the focus on energy efficiency is what is stressed in this standard. So these are some of the very important standards you will come across in your career and in your organization. When you implement these standards, you will have an idea of these things further. Okay. So now one more thing we need to understand, this PDCA cycle. That means process approach. Plan, do, check, act. You may have heard of it before, but we will understand in detail. So why it is called Deming PDCA cycle? Because after World War II, Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened. So US had the moral obligation to resurrect the Japanese economy. So they sent all their leading industry experts and experts in quality, other technical experts sent to Japan. So they taught in the universities and also helping the industries to resurrect the economy. So that time, this Edward Deming, who is known as a quality guru, he was in Japan during the 1950s and 60s. He was teaching in the university and also developing a lot of concepts and giving it to the Japanese industrial community. So that time he came up with this plan, do, check, act. That means what it says is, before starting anything, you plan about what you are going to do. So spend a lot of time in planning. Very important. Then only he says execution will go smooth, and then you check whether you've done as per the plan or not. And if there is any deviations, it will be very, very less, because you already done everything in the planning. So you will not go wrong significantly. So you can make those corrections, core corrections, so that in your action, you will be able to improve in the next cycle. It's basically a cyclical process. So you'll just see how it is done. For example, in an organization, the planning is nothing but broad level. The top management is looking at what is the policy for the organization, which should be the driving force for the organization. And then the organization also need to look at the external, internal issues pertaining to the organization, which are within their control, which are beyond their control, and what they need to do to address those things. Then also look at the risk and opportunities facing the organization. What type of business risk, process risk, which organization is facing, and then how we can mitigate those risks. Also, any opportunity available, we have to go and grab it, because opportunity is always positive for the organization. Risk may be pulling down the organization. Opportunity will lift the organization to greater heights. So we need to understand both of them, assess them, and then manage them. Also, what are the legal requirements when we are operating in a country? We need to follow the laws of the land. So we need to understand what are the legal requirements we need to comply, so that we are not, penalized, we are not blacklisted, or we are having a business closure because of non-compliance to legal requirements. So these are all things going into planning. And then we set some objectives, some targets for the employees and the departments, so that we aim to achieve this, so that the policy derived by the top management can be complied. Okay, so then planning is done well, so we go and execute the planning. So then we put a structure in place for the organization and put the required people of the right competency, and then we give training wherever there is a gap in the competency, and also create awareness about ISO. These are all going in the execution part. Then we are documenting what all we are doing, and then we are also recording the information. Then operational control, how to run the processes and things in a proper way. There are systems and procedures we establish, and then we are doing it. So now we have to see whether we are doing as per plan or not. So we have to check. It is like, a person says, I have studied all the grade 8 books now, I am ready for grade 9. Can he be promoted just on his own verbal commitment? We cannot. We have to conduct examination and see whether really he has read and understood the syllabus, or he has just read like a story. So that is why we need to check by examination. Same way, whatever we are doing in the organization, we need to see whether we are following as per the plan or not. So that is why checking is very important. Checking and correcting ourselves. So there we are looking at performance monitoring and measurement, which is a kind of checking mechanism, and then taking correction and corrective actions. And all the records, whenever we check, we need to keep records of it. So records and records management is also important. And then these audits are conducted by independent people, either external or internal, and then understand whether the organization is following the procedures and systems as per the ISO 9000 requirements. Once it is done, we see what are all the shortcomings, then we are going to improve them. That means we are reviewing as a management, sit and take note of everything, and then we are looking at what we need to do to go to the next cycle. So you see this going in a clockwise direction. Whenever we do this PDCA, and you see the center of it is top management. They are responsible for everything: planning, doing, checking, as well as acting. So they are central to the whole organization. They are involved in everything. So top management involvement is very crucial for the organization's success. So that's what it goes to signify. And they also have to follow the PDC approach in everything they do. Like a woodcutter, if he doesn't sharpen the axe and goes for cutting, he's going to waste a lot of time with the blunt cutter, and he will be tired and he will lose a lot of energy, and then the objective will not be achieved. So he'll come back empty-handed. So we don't want to go back to the drawing board. Rather, spend a lot of time, sharpen your axe. That's what they say, sharpen your mind, so you can execute things in a much faster pace. So that's what this PDCA cycle is teaching us. Now also, you see, this is cyclic process. That means every time you are checking, you are finding mistakes. It is good to make mistakes. Only thing is, the mistakes are giving you lessons of life. So we can learn from it, and then we not repeat the same mistake. That's why we do corrective action. When I do corrective action, I basically eliminate the root cause. So I don't give chance for the mistakes to recur. So I may make a new mistake, not the same mistake which I made earlier. So that is what, when we do this cycle, what is happening is we are on the path of continual improvement. Okay. And the process approach, the definition, when I say process, everything has to be considered as a process. It is a set of interrelated or interacting activities which transforms inputs to outputs. That means when you say a process, there are some inputs coming into the process. So like let's take an example of a computer. Simply, what are all the inputs for the computer? Through the keyboard, you are giving inputs, and then through the mouse also you are giving inputs. And some cases you can also speak, and your audio is also converted into inputs. So these are all going and getting processed in the CPU, the central processing unit, and then the outputs can be either in the monitor or in the printer or in various other forms. You can get it output from the computer. So this is a process. Same way, anything you take, there should be a input for the process, and then there are some processing happening and the output. So always remember, your output will be value adding compared to the input. So always input should be inferior to the output. That means the process is working well. So you see, identify the process. In an organization, we have to look at what all the processes are available. We have to map them properly. Then identify the inputs and output for each process. When you have said there is a HR process, basically their process, the output should be a well-trained or qualified people for running the organization. Okay, so they will be getting inputs from departments of what people they want, and from recruitment agencies, what are all the people available with them. So these are the inputs. Now they have to process against what is the requirement from department and what is available in the market, and they have to match it, and then they give the right kind of people for the right job. So that is the HR's process. I'm just giving an example. So identify input output, then interaction to the other process. So when a HR process as a standalone, they cannot operate. They need to be always interacting with other process. So that is very important in organization. There is a cross-functional relationship. We should not work like a silo. I just have to recruit people. I don't bother whether they are working well or not. That should not be the approach of HR. They need to be always constantly in touch with the production, other departments. They exactly know what they want, so that ultimately they have to fulfill the customer. That means internal customer. Who is the internal customer for HR? Is the other departments who are needing the required people. So they have to satisfy them. Once organization have this internal customer relationship, naturally external customer is also going to be satisfied. Okay. Then for every process, we need to have measuring criteria. That means how this process is running. We need to have a kind of check. How do we check? We need to have whether this process, for example, you go to a doctor, he checks your pulse. You may have a lot of things, but by checking your pulse, he can say whether you are having any major problem or not. So the pulse will give a indication. You are cooking food, you just take 2 grains of rice and then press it and see whether the entire food is cooked or not. So this measurement criteria will tell whether the process is healthy, running okay, and giving the desired output or not. Okay, so that is very important. And then finally, ensuring continual improvement. The process has to run the PDCA cycle. So every time you make mistakes, you correct them so that you do not repeat the same mistake. You are on the path of continual improvement. Very important. Last but not the least. Okay. So now this has to be done not only for HR process. Like that, we have to look for sales and marketing, for production process, for maintenance process. In any organization, there will be a lot of processes. We need to do this all value adding processes. The approach has to be process approach. That means follow the PDCA cycle and aim for continual improvement. So the continual improvement ISO is what is looking like this. So one cycle of PDCA you have done. So when you go to the next cycle, there is going to be improvement because you have reduced your mistakes, you have eliminated your mistakes. So new mistakes are getting lesser and lesser. So you are on the path of improvement. And we call it continual improvement. The ISO terminology is very important. It is not a continuous improvement, it is continual improvement. What is the difference? In continuous improvement, there is a continuous improvement without any break. So if there is something going wrong, you will come back to square one. Whereas in continual improvement, the standard is acting as a wedge so that they stop you from rolling behind. So if at all something happens, you will go to the previous level of achievement and you won't go back to zero. So that is what ISO believes in. Improve, standardize, improve, standardize. So that is what is continual improvement. Please remember that. This process approach helps us to have continual improvement. Now, one important thing we need to understand is the fundamental principles of quality management system. So there are 7 principles which are underlying in the quality management system standard. In various clauses, these are addressed and they are very important to understand. First and foremost, let us start with customer focus. See, that's why at the center of this whole chart. When I say customer focus, the word itself is interesting. Look at this carefully. Customer focus. So when you look at the word focus itself, if you see focus is nothing but focus on the customer. It's interesting, no? Focus on the customer is nothing but focus. So customer has the king. Customer is God. Like that many companies treat. Because without customer, organization is not there. Only when the customer continues to buy your products and services, he will be getting the money generated for your organization's running, employee salary, everything comes from customer. If everybody thinks like that in the organization, that organization will go to greater heights. So we need to have not only the management or marketing people think about customer, every person in the organization should think my salary is paid by the customer. So that is called is customer focus. So all will work in unison to achieve the customer satisfaction. Second most important thing, leadership. A strong leadership only can steer the organization for longer period and to greater heights, because he has got the vision to take the organization to future and not just 1 year, 5-year plan. They want to have lifetime plan. Even after they are gone, the organization still the famous like Tata, for example, 150 years of existence in the industry. Because of the visionary leadership of Jamshedji Tata, we are able to see the organization grown in such a big way. So that is only possible with a strong leadership. Very important. Okay, he will have the vision, and he will have the goals and mission for the people, and vision for the public or the customers to take the organization to greater heights. Then one person alone cannot do wonders. So in an organization, there is a strong leadership. Somebody has to be there to realize the vision of the leadership. So that's where we need to have engagement of people. Earlier it was called involvement of people, but that was more voluntary. So they changed to engagement of people, which is more forthcoming. That means leadership has to engage with the team of people in the organization on a regular basis, so that they feel motivated, interested, and empowered to take decision. So the organization runs in a very smooth way, and then they are looking as a whole organization aiming in a forward direction. So engagement of people also very important principle. That is where we address it in the various clauses in the standard. Then again, ISO adopted this process approach in 2000 version of the standard. So after that, 2 more revisions have happened. So still the process approach is intact. So this is the same process approach which we talked about right now. Anything we do, we follow the process. Plan, do, check, act. So when you do that, naturally the fifth principle is improvement. When you follow process, naturally improvement is happen. You cannot escape improvement. That is what is going to show and prove that process approach will lead to improvement as the fifth important principle. Because improvement has to be there in organization. Otherwise, we are not going to survive the competition. We will be out of business. It's very important. Then sixth important principle is evidence-based decision making. That means whatever decisions we take in the organization should be based on data, not a gut-based or emotional decisions should not be taken. Whatever decision should be supported by a solid data analysis and then conclusions. We are not talking about raw data. We are talking about analytical of the raw data, and then the trends and the meaningful conclusions, which will tell the top management which way we are going, a positive way or negative way, so they can do course correction. For the data analysis is very important. That's why evidence-based decision making and not gut-based decision making, or like left, right, and things getting changed. It should not be there in the organization. Then seventh and last but not the least is relationship management. That means we are here supporting the customer and giving value addition to the customer, because we are also supported by our suppliers and vendors who are giving products and services, and we are adding value on top of it and giving to our customers. So if our suppliers are out of business, we are not going to be there in the business. So we need to understand the value chain which is there in the organization, with the supplier, organization, and customer. All are important. Then only the organization can survive, when there is a supplier also supporting our organization. So we need to understand supplier is external, customer is also external. So the organization from leadership to decision making, this is all internal. So this whole organization is sandwiched by customer and supplier on the other side. So then only it's a very well-oiled organization running. So these 7 principles are very important in the quality management system. Okay, so hope you understand, and the significance you'll see in various classes when we take in a different webinar. Now also, I think this Annex SLH high level structure, this helps organization to integrate various management systems, like 9001 for quality management system. If they want to go for 14001, again they want to have a system which is possible for integration. So this ISO made it possible to integrate various management systems through the high level structure. So this is what is a structure. This you'll see all the standards are looking similar now. From 2013 onwards, whatever standard released by ISO followed this 10 clause structure. That is what is called high level structure. That means when you tell a story to a kid, you always start with once upon a time, then the kid knows that the story is starting, and always you end with a happily ever after. So then the kid knows the story is finishing. So like that, the ISO gave a structure for all the standard, the technical committees to develop the standards. Please follow the same structure, so that when a customer organization implements the standard, they will have very good clarity on, what is the ISO's various clauses and how it is implemented. So they will have a much better understanding of the standards, and implementation will be very easy. So this is what is high level structure. Now, very important note here, is I have put a bracket from class 4 to class 10. So this is what is called requirements. Remember in the initial title I said ISO 9001:2015 quality management system requirements. So these requirements from class 4 to class 10 need to be fulfilled by the organization for getting the certification. Very important. So there will be a lot of requirements which we need to go through carefully and then fulfill them while implementing the system. Then only we'll get the certification. The class 1, 2, 3 is for introduction purpose, reference only. There is like terms and definitions, scope of the standard, like that. That is only for understanding, but there is nothing to implement. So we have to focus from class 4 to class 10. This is what is called high level structure. Now, as I told you, the requirements I have consolidated from all the classes. You see, I started from class 4. There are some requirements, 24 requirements given in bracket. So like that, all the classes, right from class 4 to class 10. So there are total 309 requirements which organization need to fulfill for getting the certification. So this is very important, and we will cover it in a detail in a different webinar. This is just for your reference. I am giving it here. Also, you see the whole standard is also implementing PDCA in this way. Right from class 4, where is the requirement, to class 10, you will see the plan, do, check, act being implemented in the standard structure itself. So lot of time is spent in planning. You can see class 4, class 5, class 6, class 7 is talking about planning. So when you spend a lot of time in planning, naturally the execution is going to be very smooth, and that's what the do class is. Only one class is dedicated for execution, and the checking, again, it is only 3 subclasses. That is also one class, and action towards improvement is also one class. So this is what is the structure. If you look at any standard, ISO standard now, it will follow in the similar structure. So organizations are finding it very easy to integrate various management systems because of the high level structure. Okay. Now with this, we complete the session about understanding ISO. Not only ISO, little bit more about ISO, why ISO, what is the nutshell in ISO, what are all the management systems we have, and then what are all the process approach and other things we learned so far. Now we'll go to the implementation of ISO 9001:2015 for organizations. Very simple. There are 5 steps to implementation. I'm just going to go through them one by one. I'll just show a synopsis of all the 5. First, we have to prepare the organization towards certification. So how do we do that? We'll talk about it. Then we have to do a lot of documentation, which is very important. As I said earlier, do what is documented and document what is being done. So that also we'll touch base on that. And then we look at implementing. Once documentation is done, we have to implement the system, train the people. That's all we will see in the implementation phase. This is a very important phase, crucial phase in the certification process. Then we do the internal audit. This is checking phase. In the planning process, in the implementation itself, we have to do as a planning. So that's why checking where the internal audit will tell whether the implementation is okay or not okay, what needs to be done to fix the problems. And then finally, we call the certification body for the certification process. Again, they will be doing an external audit through the certification body, and then that will lead to certification. Now, one by one, we will go to the steps and then understand in detail. Now, let us look at preparation. So what is this preparation here? Approach to implementation. So we need to have a top management commitment here is very important. Approach. How do we approach towards certification or implementing the standard? Whether we do it ourselves or we engage a consultant, there can be 2 different views about it. People can also implement the standard. There are so much of information available in the web and in the ISO standard. People can read and understand and implement. That is one approach. It will take a little longer time. Second is you get a consultant who has got experience in the field, so they will be able to fast track the implementation process. It depends on how much time you got for implementing the standard. Depends on your requirement. Okay. Then we have to define the scope for certification. That means what all processes or what all operations of your organization you want to include in the scope of certification. Very important. Certain things you cannot exclude, like top management as a scope, you cannot exclude because top management is very critical for the organization. Maybe you are not doing some design and development. Your customer is asking some product to be done, and he gives the design. You are implementing it, so their design will not be applicable to you. So like that, we have to define the scope, which all areas, which all operations I want to bring it under the scope of certification. That clarity has to be there in the preparation state so that we can plan properly. This all goes into the planning process. Then formation of a core team. That means who are all going to be playing a very important, vital role in the organization. So naturally, top management is going to be leading that, but we also need a strong management level person who will be interacting and coordinating with all the departments, who will have some kind of authority to take some decisions, and who will be easily approachable by the management. They will be the leader, and then there will be that other department heads can form the core team, who will be basically steering the organizations towards certification. That core team with the roles and responsibility has to be clearly mentioned. Role means designation, responsibility means description of what all they will be doing. So role of leader, role of team member has to be very clear cut, so that there is no ambiguity in implementation of things, so that people know what they need to do and what is expected out of them. Very important. Then last but not the least, top management support is very important. If top management is not committed, then we are not going to certification at all. So that is why top management, once they initiate the process, they have to be always throughout the certification process, implementation, certification, top management support is very critical and vital for the organization. Okay. And then we need to conduct a gap analysis. What is this gap analysis? Means what is currently available in the organization. You may have some kind of document, may not have ISO 9001 certification, but you may have some systems in place, and then you take the standard, and then either you engage an external consultant or your leader of the core team can look at what is expected of ISO 9001 certificate company and what is available in the organization at present. So you see what is the expectation and what is reality. That is what is called a gap analysis. So go by each and every one of the requirement and see whether it is present or not present. Yes or no, or maybe some ambiguity cases you can put it in the remark. So this whole analysis is done. At the end of it, you get a report which is called gap analysis report. So then we can focus on what all things we need to attack on priority, so that the gap can be minimized and eliminated, so that you are ready for certification. And then you make the project plan and timeline, how long you will be taking for certification process. If you do not have a lot of luxury of time, then you need to engage external consultants who will be doubling up on the process, and implementation will be faster. Otherwise, if you have luxury of time, you want to learn and explore yourself and learn, you can also do the whole thing with your own resources. So that timeline will determine how you want to do the project plan. So that's what is the preparation stage, I would say. Okay. Now coming to the documentation stage. As I said, document what is being done and do what is documented. So documentation is the integral part of the ISO 9001 implementation. So when I say documentation, there are two things to it. One is document and is record. Documents are revisable. That means documents are like instruction or intention of the organization, what they want to do. Whereas records are showing evidence of implementation, what they have done. Document will tell you what to do, record will show you what you have done. Both together is documentation. So how do we differentiate then? So one is called maintained document information. That means it is a document. I can change the instruction tomorrow to say that you do not monitor every month, you monitor every week. So my instruction has changed, so my document is revised. Whereas when I record the data every month or every week, that cannot be changed. It is cast in stone. So that is what we need to understand. Documented information will be both documents and records. And important documents, what all things we need to have. The standard is telling some mandatory documents which we need to have. I will show you one by one. Quality policy. The standard expects you or organization to have a quality policy. So wherever there is a shall word in the standard, we need to understand it is a must. It's like a biblical shall. In Bible, shall means it's a must. So we need to, in colloquial language, when we say must, in ISO parlance, it is called shall. So they say there shall be a documented quality policy. That means there must be a policy. It's a mandatory document. Then there should be quality objectives. It is also a must as per ISO requirement that every department and every organization should have a objective which will be coming from the quality policy, like an umbrella policy which will give the framework for the organization to set objectives in every department and every person finally, so that everybody does their job as per the objective, then the overall quality policy decided by the organization's top management can be achieved. So that's why objectives are very important document. Then scope statement. We have to upfront say what is the certification aiming to certify for. So that operation, manufacturing, sales and marketing, design and development, if applicable, we have to put everything in the scope of the certification. That is why it is a documented mandatory statement we have to give. So this is also important. Then the procedures and critical procedures. You want more than one person operating in a plant, you need to have standard operating procedure. Otherwise, people tend to make their own things. They want to do their own things because it's very difficult to control human mind. So we need to channelize them. So the procedures are the good way to channelize everybody doing the same thing. Okay. Then work instruction. Procedure are a little higher level, supervisory level. Work instructions are very simple language, easily understandable for the operators on the line and the worker working on the line with not a lot of educational qualification. So they need to know the nuts and bolts of everything. So we have to give a step-by-step instruction is work instruction, whereas procedure is a kind of a process level understanding. We need to give both of them because there are various worker levels in the organization. Then forms, where people need to write and then that becomes a record. So when I say record, three things are important. Record should be legible and there should not be any overwriting on the record, and the date of generating the record. These three things are very important. Okay. So that is what is forms. Then process flow charts, easy to understand. If you put a flow chart instead of writing pages and pages, if you have a flow chart, people can see the arrow, how it is flowing, and they will be able to understand better. A picture says more than 1,000 words. That's why process map or flow chart is also very advisable. Then we continue with the documentation. Certain important tips I'm giving here is do look for the simplest way to meet a requirement. Do not make it very complicated and then it doesn't get addressed or people are not able to follow. Rather make it simple for the organization and the people. So look for the simpler way of doing things. Okay, so make it easy for everyone. Then do use your company's language and avoid ISO language. Do not copy from the ISO standard, say organization shall do this. That ISO is telling it. You should not tell the same. You should say we will do it, or organization is doing it, or we are doing it. Like that we have to make the sentence. Do not copy the ISO language like shall, may, consider. That is all ISO parlance. Now organizations to adopt it and then we have to own it up. That we have to write, we are doing it, we will do it. Like that it has to be written. And then do use diagrams, pictures rather than lengthy text. I just mentioned earlier, a picture says more than 1,000 words. So wherever possible, put a picture of that. So immediately understanding is much better and they will be spending less time on the reading of documentation. Then do use layout that is catchy and easy to understand. So you want to capture the people's attention towards document, you have to make it catchy so that it will always remember in their minds, so they will not forget. So make it attractive and easy to understand. So that is the essence of documentation. Very important. If you write all the mumbo jumbos, then it will be remaining only on the paper. It will never be translated in practice. So that's why you want to go closer to the worker level. We have to go to the worker's understanding level. That is why it should be catchy. Okay. Don't include time-consuming references to other documents. Don't make it too complicated by referring, this standard or that standard, this number, that number. Make it simple so they just follow and then they get the resultant output. So that's why cross-referencing can be avoided if possible. Then don't include bureaucratic requirements which are utopian in nature, which cannot be easily implementable by the organization. Like you say, I want to excel the customer satisfaction, I want to exceed customer satisfaction. That is very, very difficult to achieve, because every time customer expects something, you achieve, then he expects more than what you have given. So it is going to be a never-ending story. So you can never exceed customer expectation. You can only meet at the best customer expectation. So like that, do not shoot yourselves in the foot by saying statements like this, which is very difficult for you to comprehend. And then during the audit, you will not be able to fulfill the requirement because you yourself have stated very tall order for your organization. So that's why we should avoid these kind of, bureaucratic requirements or requirements that hinder your business operations and productivity a lot. Okay, these are all don'ts, and do's also I have given. Now coming to implementation. So here we have to train the employees. Now that we have done the documentation, we have made a core team of people who will be going they will be the catalyst in implementing the standard in the organization. So they have to first train the next level of employees. Now all organization need to be aligned on the ISO 9001. So the training is very important, right from worker level to various department supervisor level. Everybody need to be covered in this awareness training. Then you start introducing the procedures, whatever documentation you have done, which is basically the practice, what is being done in the organization, you have now written it down. So now you are introducing them to the departments, so that you just tell them, this is what you have been doing, I have documented it now, follow this now. Even if you are gone, somebody new person comes, he will also follow the same. So it is going to be consistent in the organization. Involve employees in preparing work instructions. So when you involve workers for the work instruction, so they exactly know what they are doing. So when they tell you are putting it step by step, it is going to be a motivation for them that they are also consultant in the process and they are going to own it up. It will not be thrust upon them. It will be welcomed by them because they have only told what is being done and it is written down. So they will be happily implementing it because it is their own performance is on the paper. Okay, very important, involving them. And start monitoring and measurement. We have to start monitoring things and measurement. What is the difference here? Monitoring and measuring, there is a difference. Monitoring, you need naked eye for monitoring things. You just need how many people are there, whether yes or no, whether okay, not okay. This can be monitored with the naked eye. When I start measuring, I need a help of an instrument, like a thickness of a wire or length of a certain thing. I need some instruments to measure that, and that's where calibration and measurement traceability, all that comes into picture. So we need to know both. Monitoring is also important, measuring is also important. Our measurement, there are additional requirements like calibration and other things are also coming into the picture. Then solve problems and improve process. Whenever we implement, we see a lot of problems because nobody can say there is no problem. Everybody has got problems during the implementation. It's not going to be a smooth passage. So but we have to have the resolve to resolve the problems and improve them, so that we are on the path of continual improvement. Okay. Then keep records of everything for future reference. We don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. Whenever we face a problem, how did we do the why analysis, and we looked at the root cause and corrective action, so that that is recorded and kept. So next time the similar problem should not occur. By chance, if it occurs, we know what is the methodology to resolve because it is recorded and kept. Very important. Okay. Now we go to the fourth important step, checking. After implementing it, we need to see whether we have done as per our plan of preparation, whatever we did in the first stage. So we have to do an internal audit. Here, very important that we need to have a team of people who can audit the various departments. So here, very important principle is impartiality. The person from the same department cannot audit his or her department because it is going to be a conflict of interest. So we have to train people from all departments so that there can be a cross-functional audit, so people can do audit impartially and ethically and professionally. So that is why a team of people is needed. So internal auditor need to be trained little bit more on the more than the awareness about the class requirements, what they need to look for, all those things. Okay. Then set up the audit program for the whole year. Normally we recommend once in 6 months audits to be conducted. That is called internal audit, so that the external surveillance audit or certification audit happens normally once a year. So there will be 2 audits of internal audit. So we will have a much better preparation to face the external audit. So this is what is called audit program, once in 6 months. And then closer to the time of audit, we need to make a schedule. The schedule will tell which departments will be audited by whom and when it will be done, who will be the auditee, who will be the auditor, like a very detailed time table of the particular audit. So that is called audit schedule has to be done. Then very important is, I already told, ensure impartiality. That means production is auditing HR and HR is auditing materials. I'm just giving an example, 3 different departments. It should not be like production is auditing HR and HR is auditing production. Here definitely one auditor is from the other department. But when you have this kind of A to B and B to A, what happens is conflict of interest comes into picture, because they will have a understanding not to find a fault or anything. So it will become a diluted exercise. So that's why A to B and B to C, the audit has to be done like that, not A to B and B to A. Okay, that will be tit for tat. So we don't want to do that. So ensure impartiality is very important. Then documentation, documented information of audit. So when I say documented information, please understand there are two things here. One is a document and also record. So what is a document? Document is your audit program, audit schedule. These are all documents which can be changed. For example, audit is not available on the day, they can change the audit date. So that's why document is always revisable. Schedules can go through revisions, 1, revision 2, like that, based on the availability of auditee and auditor. Whereas record is the audit report, the non-conformance report. Once it is written down and signed by the auditor, then it becomes permanent. So records cannot be changed. So we need to have both. Audit schedule and audit program is a document, audit report is a record. Then also we have checklist, which is helping you in executing audit smoothly. Before going into a department, we need to sit with all the procedures pertaining to the department, also with the ISO standard. Look for what is the ISO requirement. Make a checklist. So auditor's job is to make a checklist. So when they go to the department audit, so they can do audit as per the checklist, which will make the audit very smooth, and then they can also elicit all the information as per the ISO requirements and also company's procedural requirements. So checklist is for the beginner audits, checklist is going to be a very important tool for effective audit. Audit with a view towards improvement. When we audit, we should not be looking for faults. We should be looking for fact. It should be a very conducive mode of audit, rather than kind of very unfriendly audit should not be there. So when you see fault finding, it will be not a productive audit. We need to go for fact finding. So we just want to find out the facts and not looking for mistakes. So that should be the audit methodology. Very important. When you do the training, these internal auditors will understand the best way of auditing. And then finally, we go to the certification step, which is very important. That's give you the accreditation that you are now certified as per ISO 9001:2015 standard. So first and foremost, we have to select the right certification body as per your requirement, or registrar. It's another way of calling a certification body. As I said, there are thousands of certification bodies available. So we need to go for what is best suited for your industry type. There may be some experts in a particular industry, so you can go for their certification, though you'll have a much more validity. Sometimes your customer also demand, like, I want certification from this. So because customer is always, the god and king, we have to accept their demand. So you have to go with the certification body which the customer wants. Sometimes you are free to choose, so you can go through the various websites and see what all the accreditation they have. So you see the lineage of the certification body and then select it. Very important, first step. Then prepare the employees for certification audit. Now that we have done the internal audit, we have found all the problems, we have addressed it. Now we have to prepare all the employees how to face audit, what to tell the auditors when they come from external things. We have to be very professional in handling the audit, so we have to train everybody. So prepare the employees, very important. Not only just one person who is the management representative, the entire department and all the employees, because auditor from external can ask anybody. There is no restriction. So when I ask anybody in the organization, they need to be able to understand basic things. That's where I gave you the nutshell. So if everybody is able to say these three things, do what is documented, document what is being done, and show continual improvement, auditor will be happy that there is a understanding of ISO in the organization. Top management availability and support. Top management, this goes without saying, their support is very important. But during the audit days, top management availability also should be there, because the auditors may be wanting to ask the top management viewpoint on how the company is going, what is the future direction. So there should be a very good interaction happening. So top management availability has to be taken into account before finalizing the dates for the audits. Then there are two stages this audit is conducted. Whenever first organization goes for certification, audit is normally done in two stages. First stage is normally called desk audit or documentation audit, where your documentation, whatever you have done, is sent to the auditor certification body. They can be a remote place. They may not be coming to our organization. They may do it in their office, sitting and looking at the documents. So that is why it's called desk audit. They may not be visiting your plant or site. They will be doing only a documentation audit. Here they are looking at conformance to the ISO 9000 requirements on paper. You have only given the paper that I will do this, or our organization is doing it. It's all written on the paper. So they can only look at the paper and verify against the requirement in ISO. They can say on paper your organization is qualified to conduct the next stage audit. So if there is a gap in the requirement and what is written down in the procedures and the manual, then they may ask a organization to correct these things, because even before visiting the site they see that there is a problem in the documentation because it is not addressing the ISO 9001 requirement. All the 9001 requirements to be addressed in the documentation, very important. So that's why it is called stage 1 audit. So once those issues are resolved and all your documentation is corrected as per the recommendation of the stage 1, then the stage 2 audit happens. Here the auditors are coming to the site. That is called certification audit, because first time you are going for it. Maybe after 3 years it will be called recertification audit. So here it is happening on site. That means audit is happening on site. Auditors are coming and interacting with the employees, looking at the processes, and they are looking at the conformance to ISO 9000 in practice. You see, in stage 1 we looked at on paper. Now we are looking at in practice. This is a reality, that is only theory. Now we are looking at the practical. So how it is practically implemented, whether the letter and spirit it is done, or it's only in the document, or in reality it is not there. So that is what will be verified during the stage 2 audit. So it's called site audit or certification audit. So then there will be any non-conformances, if any, or if you have done exceedingly well, so there may not be any non-conformances, and then the auditors, based on their observations, it will be a sample based audit. Please remember, they cannot audit the entire documentation, whatever you have done so far. All the departments will not be 100% audited. They will do a sample audit, and once they are satisfied, they will recommend you for certification. This is how the process goes. But if they find any non-conformance, they give you a time period of maybe 1 month. It depends from certification body to certification body. Once you take the necessary corrective actions, root cause analysis and corrective actions, then they will recommend you for certification. But if there is no non-conformance, then they will recommend you for certification straight away. Okay, now let us look at the benefits of ISO 9001 certification. We already discussed, why ISO, but sometimes, we need to understand the benefits, so we will be more motivated to go for certification. One is consistent quality to customer. How we are achieving it? By following documented procedures. People are following, everybody is following, so we have a consistency. So customer is happy with the product. He comes back to the company for getting another product. If he comes back to complain, that means it is not a good quality. Whenever customer comes back, repeat buys indicate a better quality and customer satisfaction. So consistent quality to customers. Second thing is eliminating errors and reducing rework and rejection. So whenever we see problem, we are looking at the root cause. So we are eliminating the problem, taking corrective action. So errors are getting minimized. So your rework and rejection is also getting lesser and lesser. So that is another important benefit of ISO 9001. Then enhanced customer satisfaction. As I said, customer repeat buy is happening means customers are getting satisfied. So we are constantly meeting the customer requirement. Over a period of time, he is going to be satisfied with our processes and products and services. So it is going to enhance the customer satisfaction by our various products and services. Then we are also looking at, very important, becoming competitive. So as I say, continual improvement is the mantra in ISO 9001. When you implement, every year you have to show improvement, what you have been doing and what you are doing now. So it should be always better than yesterday. So then when you do that, you are going to be competitive in the market, because you are going to benchmark ourselves against the competition. So we are going to be better and better. So we will be competitive in the marketplace, and we will be getting the continued customer confidence. Then improved profitability. Naturally, when you have more market, either through market share or getting new customers, you are going to improve the pie, means increase the pie. The profitability is also going to increase. It's all dividends, means of implementing ISO 9001. These can be tangibly seen in organizations where they have implemented ISO 9001. The profits are also increasing because you are focusing on your reduction in rejection, which is going to improve the bottom line, and also enhance customer satisfaction, also going to have a lot of more market and more materials going into the market and customers. Then compliance to legal requirement. ISO also tells, you need to know what is the legal requirement. In the preparation stage itself, we have seen that. So when you follow the laws of the land, you are going to be complying, and there should be no any problem from the government agencies, like regulatory agencies. Everything is done properly. So above board, all good corporate citizenship is maintained. So you are going to be a well recognized company, recognizing all the legal requirements. So it is going to be a byproduct of implementing the ISO 9001 certification. Okay, so this is it. Now let us see what are all the keys for successful implementation. Now that we have understood what are all the steps, the 5 steps we talked about, now we need to understand the important points here. One is topmost, top management support. Yes, everywhere the ISO says, anything is going wrong, top management is responsible. So if we do not have the top management support, we are not going to be successful in implementation. Very important. Second, we need to have dedicated resources for this, like a core team, which I mentioned. Along with the other responsibility, we have to give them clear cut, what all things they need to do for ISO, and if required, maybe some additional resources till we are certified. We need to put the resources in place. Then employee buy-in means employees are integral part of the organization. If you do not get the buy-in for the employees, it is not going to be successful in the organization. So everybody has to participate in the process. It is not just one person, top management and the management representative, or maybe the core team. It is not going to be successful. It is for the people, by the people, and of the people. So the employees in the organization has to buy into this process. Okay, and strong core and implementation teams, a core team which will be steering the whole process, and department level implementation also has to happen. So some representation from every department, so they will be implementing it in the respective departments. So that is very important. Then training as a whole, awareness to everyone, and then some people you are selecting as internal auditors, a little bit more awareness about the class requirements, how to conduct audit, how to behave, when you go about questioning other departments diplomatically, how you conduct the audit in a conducive manner. So all this training has to be given. This is what is important. Now everybody in the organization need to understand what is my role, because I said earlier, everybody has to contribute. It is not one person who can make this happen. So your role in implementation, so right, it starts from the awareness. We need to know what is the policy. We have to understand and internalize the policy. It is not just memorizing it, putting in the pocket and referring to it. We have to internalize it, what I need to do in my own little department, so that the policy signed by the top management can be achieved. So we need to have the commitment. Procedures, we have to follow the procedures, work instructions, and my departmental objectives. It is documented, and we are following it and then achieving the targets. Then intimate or notify whenever there is a problem, raise that non-conformance, and for corrective action and correction. Very important. Correction means immediately addressing the problem. Corrective action means going to the root cause, why the problem happened. Ask those 5 whys. Finally you will find the root cause, and then mitigate that risk. Any risk from process level, what we can do to mitigate that, so that it doesn't become a business risk and organizational risk. Opportunities, we have to implement. If you see, like Nike, you see the Nike is the tagline, just do it. So some of the things, you should not wait for ever. If you feel there is an improvement, just do it. So opportunities like that, it knocks only once. We have to grab it and seize it and implement it. Then only we will be in the positive way. Follow the instructions, procedures, and then monitor stated parameters. Whatever procedure says what is to be monitored, follow that and implement. Teamwork is very important. I used to always say there is nothing to gain in solitude. Let teamwork be your attitude. Very important. So with the team, you can go and get a greater success. So we have to be working as a team. And then in team also, you see, together everyone adds more. That is what is team. T, together. E, everyone. A, adds more. M, so teamwork. Record. So as I said, record have to 3 things: legibility, traceability, the date should be there, and signature should be there. If you do not have record without signature, that is not valid. Okay. Then continual improvement. What I did yesterday is no longer the standard. We need to look at ways of doing better. So there is always a better way of doing things. That's how we should always think about our work and how we carry ourselves. Always there is a better way. That should be the mantra in the organization. ISO will not work. This also we need to understand, where people will not don't like change. They are in their comfort zone. They don't want any change. It is going to be very difficult because anything can be changed. If a people mindset cannot be changed, it's very difficult for the organization to implement. They are allergic to teamwork. They are working individually. They are not good in team. It is not going to be successful. They will be only looking at their own achievements. They are not looking at the team success. So that is also going to be a problem. Find problems as solutions to problem. You go on coming up with the new problems, and you are not giving any solution to your existing problems. It is not going to be successful for the organization. You are not there to complain. You are there to solve. What I can do to solve the problem. Everybody should think like that, rather than giving up more and more problems for solving. That is only firefighting. We have to see how we can solve the problem. Do not believe in documentation and recording. If people are not believing in documentation, that is a fundamental principle I told you. Document what is being done. If you do not write down what is being done, or you do not follow what is written down, it is going to be a problem for the organization in implementation. ISO will not work in that organization. Involvement, engagement is not there. Means people have to be engaged. As I said, they have to be constantly engaged. Your team, the core team, the implementation team, be discussing with the people and understanding the problem, and then engaging with them on a regular basis. Then only this team can be a success. Okay. And management, last but not the least, is not committed in that organization, ISO will not happen, because management commitment is very important, because they are the people who are signing the document, the quality policy. When I sign on the dotted line, I give my full commitment, because it's a signed document from the top management. So if management is not committed, the policy is not even worth what is written on the paper. So that is why the commitment is very important. Okay. So with that, we see what are the barriers to effective implementation. Lack of management support, it is basically the same thing what we talked about. And inadequate resources, as I said, dedicated resources to be provided. If there is a shortage of resources, it is going to take more time, and then people may lose their interest also. We need to be aware of. And then support from staff. As I said, employee buy-in is very important. And then inadequate awareness and culture within the organization. The culture should be conducive for change. Change is constant in any organization. People need to be adaptive to change. If they are resisting to change, then the culture is not conducive for implementing ISO 9001. And lack of clear-cut responsibilities. I used to say, if more than one person is responsible for anything, then nobody is responsible. Because too many people responsible for one thing, then the things will not get done. Because people will think, he is going to do or she is going to do, but then he will not do, and neither she will not do. So that thing will not get done. So that's why very clear-cut responsibility. Who will do what? Unequivocally, it should be described in document when you give the job description, so that you can expect that things to be done by them. ISO is too complex for the organization. Do not make the standard too complex for the organization. Then it will also not lead to implementation. Make it simple for everyone to understand, and basic requirements have to be met. So that should be the mantra. Not make it too complex and you are not able to be implementing it. Organizational politics and culture within functional areas. Functions have to work cross-functional. We should not work in cross purposes. We should work towards the one goal of satisfying the customer who is external to the organization. So everybody should work in unison. Then only it will be success. There is petty politics and backbiting and all in the departments. It is not going to be successful for the implementation of the ISO 9001 standard. Okay. So with that, we complete the session, this webinar on steps to implementing ISO 9001-2015. Hope you got a broad understanding, because it's a very short time. We could cover only this much. But now I open the floor for questions. Anybody has got any questions, please raise it up. I will try to answer your queries. Yes, gentlemen?
I have a question, Mr. Sitaraman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
As you talked about implementation of ISO 9001,
Hmm.
do we need a consultant to implement ISO 9001 in any organization, or that can be implemented by the internal team just by having the copy of the standard and following the session which are written there?
Yeah, very good question, sir. You see, in my first step towards implementation, I talked about preparation, where the organization's timeline and what is their the approach that will determine whether they need to engage a consultant or they can do it themselves. It is not a rocket science. Organizations can implement this standard by referring to the ISO 9001 requirements given in the standard, buy the copy of the standard, either from Bureau of Indian Standards or available online, and go through the requirements. It will be a slow pace of implementation. If you have got a luxury of time, I would suggest organization can implement on their own, learning and then committing mistakes, and then you can learn from the mistakes so you won't repeat it, but there will be a better understanding coming in. So you can do that. But if there is a tender requirement which says your organization need to be ISO 9001, having certification for ISO 9001, and the tender is opening very soon, so you do not have the luxury of time. So there we will have to engage a consultant who will be able to fast track this process, because he comes with the knowledge and expertise, so he can understand and he can find out the gap analysis, and then he can tell exactly what needs to be done, so he can make things quicker for the organization. It all basically depends on the organization timeline and how they want to take the certification process forward. Hope it addresses your query, sir.
Yeah, okay. There is one associated question. Are these
Yes.
standards available online free of cost, or we have to pay some amount to get the copies of the standards?
Yeah, as I said, ISO organization runs basically by publishing standard and selling them. So naturally, they are not available free. It's copyright standard. There are two ways you can get it. One is directly you can go to ISO website. That is the international standard ISO 9000 and 2015. Basically, it is very expensive for Indian rupees. So, they will have to pay in dollars. Also, we have got another option which is much cheaper option. Our Bureau of Indian Standards, as official ISO representative, they are also adopting the ISO standard and then publishing it in India as a ISO 9001 2015. That means IS means Indian standard. It is adopted standard of ISO 9001. Everything is same. It will be available in Hindi and English also. It will be costing like 600, 700 rupees, whereas the original ISO standard from overseas will cost you maybe 4,000, 5,000 rupees. So you will have to buy it, obviously, because it's a copyright standard. You are not supposed to photocopy or use a photocopy standard. That is against the principle of ISO. So we need to buy the standard and implement them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Is there any
Mr.
other question?
Sitaraman, I do have a question as well.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
Sir, how do we ensure that the non-conformance which has been raised out by the auditing team are closed by the organization who faced the audit?
Yeah, whenever a non-conformance is issued, they clearly give out timelines for closing out. Normally, the non-conformance are of two types: minor and major. If it is a minor non-conformances, basically 1 month time is given for the organization to take root cause analysis, correction, and corrective action. Since it's a minor non-conformance, the certification can be issued by verifying the corrective action given by the organization. But if it is a major non-conformance where the entire element of standard is missing, entire clause is not implemented effectively, then there is a re-audit which have to be conducted either on-site or maybe remote ways by submitting all the documentation of corrective action, correction, and root cause analysis. Then the auditors will verify and determine whether a re-audit to be conducted. Otherwise, they can do the re-audit and then recommend for certification. Till that time, we cannot claim certification. So if it is a minor non-conformances, certification can be issued. But for major non-conformances, till the non-conformance is resolved, basically the certification cannot be issued.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Is there any other question from participants? Any question? So if there are no other questions from the participant side, I think we can close the session. Okay. I thank you, Mr. Sitaraman, sir, from the bottom of my heart for taking time for your busy schedule to be the guest speaker today at our webinar. Your presence and wise words help amplify our cause in the best possible way. All thanks to our enlightening words that inspired us so many other participants out there. I cannot thank you enough for gracing our webinar. vitalizing all our spirits and making everyone feel happy to get technically upgraded. I look forward to our next interaction soon. Wishing you all the best. Thank you so much, Mr. Sitaraman. Thank you so much.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. And now we can end the session. All participants are requested to leave the meeting.